This is Meet the Practitioner, the Happy Signals podcast, where you'll hear from people like you, IT leaders and experienced champions sharing real stories, real lessons, and what's beyond the metrics.
So, hello everyone. My name is Mark Bewick, and welcome to this episode of Meet the Practitioner, where I'm joined today by not only one but two ITXM practitioners. We have Donna Xanthidis and Sharon Aggarwal, both from Invesco. So today we're going to explore a couple of key areas associated with IT experience management. We'll talk to both Sharon and Donna. And first off, why don't we do a quick round the call? So Donna, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thanks very much for having us. Mark, my name is Donna Xanthidis. It's a Greek name, but I'm not Greek. I'm as English as a pork pie. I am an associate director at Invesco, and I lead the technology CX customer success team at Invesco. I've been here for about 25 years, and I manage a team of around 7 very, very highly talented customer experience analysts that are very much focused on ITXM. I probably do.
Excellent, thank you. And yourself, Sharon?
And I'm Sharon Aggarwal. Okay, sorry, Mark. I'm Sharon Aggarwal. And similar to Donna, it's an Indian name, but I'm not Indian. But I'm not as English as a pork pie. I'm more as Irish as the renowned leprechaun.
Oh.
But I've been at Invesco for around 25 years as well. I lead up our voice of the customer and work reporting to Donna into that group. I've worked with Happy Signals. I think I was one of your early adopters all the way back in 2019.
Wonderful. Yeah, just a year after I did the same thing at a former company as well. So thank you both, and welcome to this session to talk about ITXM. So the first thing on my mind is around CSAT, KPIs, and SLAs and what have you. So there's lots of conversation out there as organizations look at XLAs, experience level agreements, around CSAT, SLAs, KPIs. Are they worth their selves anymore? Are they useless? Are they dead? What's your views on that, please?
Maybe I'll let Sharon go first on this one.
So, I mean, thinking from your question really like around, not necessarily, we won't get onto XLAs, but thinking about CSATs and how we started with those. I wouldn't say that they're bad. They're just incomplete, right? So it kind of tells you what's going on in a very binary way, whether they're happy or not happy, or it was, good or bad. But it doesn't really tell you why or what part of the experience made an individual feel that way when they had that. So I feel like with CSAT, you can't understand the whole story. You just get a little snippet of it. So, you either get a number or a star or a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but it didn't really doesn't tell you anything meaningful about why people felt the way they did. And here at Invesco, my experience was that half the time when we collected the score, we didn't do anything with it. Or we just include it in a report to show that things were good. Or, we didn't actually improve the service there. And, for our teams here, and definitely our operations teams that we have that are based out in India, it became more about chasing that metric than actually learning from it. So, I think in a nutshell, CSAT's like a signal. We can, it's a faint one, so we can see kind of what's going on with the experience, but not necessarily what's going on with it, but not actually what's happening if we delve into it deeper. So when we look at what's going on with ITSM and with XLAs, it enables us just to delve in a bit more and just to see that what's the bigger insight and what can help drive action around that.
Yeah, I like the word, the faint signal. The faint signal is key. It does tell you something, but it doesn't really do much. And I recently posted something on LinkedIn.
Does it give you a whole picture?
Yeah. It's almost like the airport toilet, the thing that I post on LinkedIn, right? Where you get the smiley face on the way out. I know that has other meanings and other uses, such as, if you get too many negatives, we need to send someone to the toilet to do something about it. But it's the same thing, right? If you're using that for trying to make decisions, it's, toilets are easy compared to IT, right? Let's face it. Bad analogy, maybe.
It can give you an indication, right? But I think you've got to go in and delve a bit deeper to get the fuller story. Not necessarily in a toilet, Mark, but thinking from our world.
Yeah. I'd always say, who wants to press the button in the toilet? You don't have
exactly.
Yeah. On the way in, maybe. On the way in, so you can wash your hands afterwards. Yeah. I would follow that one. Yeah. Donna, anything to add to that, Sharon? Sharon explained it really well, but your view, is it
No,
similar? Or?
I can't really add to. I guess I said I can't really add to it. Only to maybe correct Sharon on a very small thing,
Cool.
and that was we did collect the scores for sure, tick, but it wasn't half the time. It was all of the time. We didn't do anything with them. So,
Right.
and even if I recall, even for our customers, it was who were actually still willing to provide the feedback, even though we didn't do anything with it. It was like a tiny, hardly visible thumbs up, thumbs down kind of icon that you needed a magnifying glass to see anyway. So no, I can't really add to what she said. She's absolutely right.
Got it. So
And also thinking, XLAs and SLAs, we've got quite robust set of SLAs in place and OLAs. But does everyone know what they are, right? We do lots of reporting. Yeah, historically we're hitting them, we were doing this, but I wouldn't say, does the end user really care that you're hitting them? I mean, what's actually happening for them on the end? And that's really where the exploration and the further development steps towards an XLA will take place.
yeah, exactly that. It's all too common to look at the KPIs that we have and think that's the be all and end all. But you're right; it means nothing to the employee if it doesn't focus on them. It focuses more on the outputs from
Yeah.
IT, right? How they're performing. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, great stuff. So you've both been in the IT experience management certainly with us anyway, for the last 7 years or so, right? So you've been doing this for a while, and could you share a couple of practical ways maybe that you're using ITXM today, and maybe some ideas of things you might have changed because of investing time and effort into it?
Yeah, sure. So I think from a personal perspective, it's definitely changed quite a lot about how I approach my work. But looking at the sort of the wider technology group within Invesco, there's two key areas that really stand out for me. So the first one is communication.
Right.
So we have sort of a mantra and a philosophy that we work to, which is "you said we did," and this really sort of shores up this all the time. So I guess before we were in the ITXM space, any improvements that were communicated, they seem to be in a quite generic way. So it'd be like, we fixed the thing, yay. But now, personally, and what we try and sort of really reinforce across the wider team is that we try and anchor everything in the impact that they had on the individual, on that human experience. So we can say that we fixed this because you told us how it was impacting your productivity, your day, or slowing you down. And I think that shift from to make it more about the human experience makes the communication far more meaningful to the person who's on the receiving end of it. And also it helps connect that improvement, back to that human experience. And that, it's just a much more powerful message to land. And then the second one, I think that stands out for me is around prioritization. So historically, improvements were driven by assumptions, legacy thinking, or really just the loudest voice in the room, not the loudest room. So usually that would be the person with, like the biggest title, right?
Yeah.
So I think now, well, I don't think, I know. With ITXM, we show where the real friction points are. So we can look at, the business's point of view, and it's not like an IT perception or an individual in IT's point of view. And it completely changes the conversation. So for me, it helps guide teams and leaders towards decisions that are actually going to deliver value. And then, instead of what just feels urgent to someone internally. And, looking at what we get from Happy Signal, I appreciate the insights that help pinpoint and help us dive into that.
And yes, I would agree. The golf course conversations in the past, were the senior leadership team on the golf course, and they'd say this application is terrible. Next thing you know, there's a program to get rid of it. When actually the employees love it, and it works really, really well for them.
Those happy hours in America have got a lot to answer for.
Excellent, Donna, your views?
Yeah, so maybe I would talk a little bit more about some of the quite robust processes that we've developed and we're now running as a direct result of the experience management insight that we get. So we're now running things like mystery shopping activities, customer journey mapping activities, happiness user groups, all of these things informed by trends or hotspots that we've identified in our data. Whereas, previously we just didn't have that. We're far more mature in that space now. We also use it to identify learning and training opportunities, both for our customers and for their tech colleagues as well. And then additionally, we've also built out things like continuous improvement registers. They prevent that. What that's doing is providing a visible backlog of like continuous improvement projects and initiatives, again, that have come out of, informed experience. And that in turn has informed our strategic focus for areas of technology, customer experience, and all of that sort of thing. So that's working out really, really well. And all of these processes kind of build on top and help us with those "you said we did" stories as well. So we can say that off the back of you telling us about that, we have developed out these processes that help us, push forward and continue down that vine. So I think I get really proud of my team and my fellow tech colleagues, and the focus that ITXM like really brings to us. And I think it's built a genuine culture of continuous improvement. So, and sort of Sharon's already touched on it, but maybe one of my favorite uses, as we've already talked about, slightly indulgent use maybe, is being able to show that single complaint that reaches someone quite important doesn't automatically equate to a serious or widespread problem, and that that everyone needs to jump on, as you both said. I said that's not to say that experience isn't totally valid, right? Because someone is having a bad experience there, but using customer data to help scale a response rationally and more constructively just really makes me smile.
Yeah, it does make a massive difference, doesn't it? And it also makes a difference to your service providers as well. I know you guys are measuring and girls are measuring lots of different measurement areas, so you're getting more of a 360 view than many when we go back to the CSAT point, which was just ticket-based stuff, right? Largely. So you're getting a good picture of the whole picture, you know what I mean, as opposed to just a little segment of it. So it's very, very good. And you can make that CSI register and the improvements meaningful across the board, not just with typically support, right? And a few application bits and pieces. Very good, very good. So,
And
go on.
also, sorry, Mike, just to jump in as well, like our team members on our service desk and our other support areas, you know, when they get called out individually, we might touch on this a little bit more. Like they go to look for that, and that's kind of it's that instant feedback, positive feedback that you're receiving that you might not necessarily have had in the past.
Yeah, it's motivational, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people think of this as a bit of a stick to beat people with. I've heard this from various people before, and it's not, because most of the feedback is
Yeah,
positive. Most of it really is positive. You're always
yeah,
going to get some grumbles, but you certainly can't please everyone. But for the most part, it's a good news story and it's motivational, and you can identify people that are knocking out of the park every single day and find out what are they doing that's different to some other people. Maybe is it just a care thing, is it a skill thing, or what? You can target interventions there as well in a positive way, right, as opposed to just
yeah,
picking them up with a stick.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
excellent. So thinking about all of the feedback you've had, and you've got 7 years worth, right? So you've got lots of it. It'd be interesting to know any of the sort of the best, comical, maybe the toughest feedback you've received, and what you might have done about that. I've heard some horror stories in this space, and I've heard some really good funny ones. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think I might lead off really with more generic and just building upon what I just mentioned there. So I guess I'll start off with what I feel like the worst feedback's been. Over the what 6.5 years nearly now that we've had it in place. So I feel, look, going back to the human experience, it's always that bit about I didn't feel listened to or I was ignored. Even if we've solved the technical issue, we've done everything we can, but we've not told the end user or become our business partners that it was resolved. So you're going to leave someone feeling unheard or abandoned. So that the whole experience collapses then. And I've seen feedback where, our business partners have felt passed around or assuming that IT didn't care. And those are the comments that stay with me individually, because that's just, we've done everything right and we've just fallen at that last hurdle. And I guess then on the flip side, looking at kind of what the best experience is. So I said it's, when an individual is called out, even if something, didn't technically work as it, a process has fallen over, but they say, look, for example, I hate my piece of hardware, but I love X person because, they always come on that. So that's a positive, right? Even though we're giving them a good experience, even though a product might not be great. So it might be something as well around that, whatever's happened, the experience has made their day easier, or the person that helped them seemed to genuinely care, or they could see that they went the extra mile for them. So, it's almost around that it's not that they didn't just fix my issue, that I felt supported. And that kind of comment reminds you of why you're doing it. And to your point, that is around the motivation piece. So I've not given you specifics. I'm going to leave that for Donna, but just sort of the generic pieces around. And I guess one piece is, even if like we've seen it, when we have seen it in Happy Signals, scores dip the more times it goes to different resolving groups. But actually, what we see in ours is the more resolving groups it goes, the score might not necessarily dip. It might dip and go back up. And that's because at that point, we're keeping that end user, that business partner informed. We're communicating with them. So they know, even if it's taking longer to resolve than maybe it should, they're being told what's going on. And I think that's, I know personally for me, and I think in general for people, as long as you know what's going on, you can kind of understand any sort of issues in the background.
I would agree totally. And the communication part is really quite important. I mean, I was going to change my service provider for my broadband recently, and it's an interesting. So you decide to move. So you go online and you start that process off. You get a great deal, right? The next day, your current one contacts you and says, we can match that or beat it. So okay, well, I'll stay because it's easier, but we've got to come and do some work, and we'll come in 2 weeks' time on the 16th of January, whatever it was. And they didn't, and they give me a time, 9 till 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I called them and they said, oh, that's because the person at the group that do the cabling have a problem with the address. And I said, well, what point were you going to tell me, right? Because, the art of communication, it wouldn't have mattered if it was 3 months down the line or even 6 months, right? I'd have been okay. And the same is true with tickets, right? I've seen lots of cases, and it's a common theme when we have these conversations with people that do this work, that communication gets you through a whole raft of problems, because I've seen tickets for 6 months old, right, that have come out of a 9 or 10 out of 10 because they've been kept informed and they realized it was a complex thing to deal with, right? I would have been very happy going back to my broadband if they could said to me, we can't do it now, it's going to be 10, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months down the road because of these reasons, we'll be in touch. But that didn't come. So you know what, you just cancel and go back to where you are. And that's how people feel about IT, right? If you can't be bothered to communicate with me, then I won't bother contacting IT anymore. If I can help it, I'll go and find another solution.
And you can think of good and bad examples kind of in real life, when we travel, not knowing what's going on at airports, if there's a delay, it's just, or trains, it's just frustrating, isn't it? And we all know that feeling, and you can translate it into your work in technology, right? That's what I think. Would you feel not knowing, or think of an instance when you didn't know something, and then how does that make you feel? And I think, again, I keep going back to the human experience. Go back to that, and then that's everyone wants. I've said wants to feel heard, listened to, and communicate to. And it's
that's it.
Enhances the experience.
Yeah, and this hasn't changed forever, right? It's just, this is an age-old problem that happens everywhere, I dare say, right? It's not new. It's not, it's just simple stuff to get right. The simple changes you can make a huge difference. Give you another example, a real-world one. Yesterday, I went down to London and I was on the underground, and the train, the underground tube kept stopping at every stop, obviously every station, but there was a delay, like a 2-minute delay before we left. And the driver came on and said, this is because there's a train in front of us, it's struggling a bit, it's going to continually happen. Now we know, right? And she mentioned that at every stop. So brilliant, that's exactly all we needed to know. Then no one's going to sit there and get heated about it. It's obvious what's going on. I appreciate that. It's out of their control, and it helped that they apologized as well. Not much they can do about it, but they apologized. Makes a big difference. Sorry, Donna, let's go to you on this one.
Well, so Sharon's done all the sensible discussion and response to your particular question. I think I'm just here for comic value more than anything. But I did want to provide maybe sort of light-hearted and more anecdotal example that we had, because I think it's still one of my favourite fails ever. So I'll give you some context. This was some time ago. So like everyone, Invesco are obviously looking and focused on AI for the past couple of years. And some time back, one of our technology leaders, he got Microsoft Copilot. let's just say he was experimenting. He also perhaps wasn't as aware as he now is around some of the processes we put in place around collecting insight and feedback from our business. So he receives one of our proactive surveys about hardware and decides to use Copilot to respond to his survey. But he decides to do that in the style of Donald Trump. So we get this massive long commendation eulogizing at the awesomeness of our laptops. You can hear Donald Trump in there saying he's very excited, the best laptops ever, all of this sort of thing. And it was enormous. This response was massive. But I guess what he didn't know was just how robust our process was. So Sharon comes in the next day, logs on, does her usual checks and has a look at feedback. She's like, Donna, have you seen this? And I look at it, it's like a page long. I'm like, oh my God.
These are the best laptops that ever were.
I remember you sent this one
so
to the CSM. Yeah, you shared this one with us. I remember.
You guys share.
Yeah, you have to share things like that. That's an awesome one.
It was brilliant, but I had to go back to him and say, you do know how visible this is, right?
On your live screen. Imagine that pop up on a live screen in the office, right in the canteen or something. That would have been funny, wouldn't it? Oh, my dear. Oh,
I mean, look, 10.
Oh, there we go. It was a good one. It could have been worse. It could have been a horror story in that sort of voice. That could have been worse, right? So that's good. And why not, right? It
Still
can
one
be
of my
fun.
favourites.
It can be fun, and it's clearly had an impact.
That was one of the best and the worst.
Oh, that's absolutely
Also,
brilliant.
when you get the good and bad, though, you get them in because the next thing you get is I get a little message from Sharon. Here, have you seen this? And you start looking through the feedback. You're like, whoa.
Juicy gossip stuff.
So,
Yeah. Yes, brilliant stuff. Excellent.
It's not that. It's just it'll be. I hope somebody's looking into this. Well, I'm kind of providing governance level, so making sure that you have seen this, haven't you? You are acting on this. This is,
I remember years ago, probably it was 2016 or 17, I started manually surveying. I might have told you this story before, but I started manually surveying people at the end of a ticket to look after corporate shared services. And we didn't have happy signals. We didn't even have any CSAT in my area, in my service management area through ServiceNow or whichever it was ServiceNow at the time. So I thought, okay, I'll just manually sort of type emails when tickets got resolved. I'd contact them and say, how did we do? And I never forget one where the lady called me and said, I didn't expect to be contacted about this, because she'd given me feedback. It was a sort of 4 out of 10, whatever it was. And she said, I didn't expect anyone to call me whatsoever. And at that point, I think it made me think that this is worth doing, because no one expects it, and that's a key part, right? We have to do some communication to let people know. It comes as a bit of a surprise to her. So a little bit of a lesson for me, but it made me think that it's the right thing to do. Big feedback and actually take action on it. If you're gonna ask someone something, do something with it. Don't waste their time. That's another element of CSAT. Even if it's a few seconds, right? It's just noise if you're not going to do anything with it.
That was what's so lovely about this particular example, because going back to our said leader and saying, you do know that this is really visible, he goes, I didn't even know you did anything with this stuff. So it actually delighted him. We had a process in place to actually back and respond to it. So I think he quite enjoyed that as well.
It makes a difference for sure, and it keeps the wheel going, doesn't it? If you do something with it, if you do nothing, then it's gonna stop. You're wasting your time.
We did hope he wouldn't start a trend as well, and luckily he didn't. They have all other pieces of feedback have been received in the originator's true voice, not in the style of anybody else.
That's disappointing. In a way, it'd have been comedy if they could have had this little competition going to see who could make it the funniest one, or with a real message in it, but in a different point. Oh, anyway, I digress. Okay, that's wonderful. So we've been through. Sorry. Say again.
We'll challenge your listeners.
Oh, yes.
Challenge your listeners, yeah.
Give us your best stories. Yeah, we should set up a page for that, shouldn't we? Give us your best stories. Maybe we can do that. Okay, right. So excellent. We've covered quite a bit today. We've covered your history in this area and the fact you're doing a wonderful job in Invesco with this. We've talked about CSATs, KPIs, SLAs, and a little bit about XLAs. We've talked about how you're changing things with this new way of working, because from my perspective, it becomes, and my history of this, it becomes a new way of working. It's different to just doing ITSM, where you're looking at KPIs and SLAs and CSATs all day. And finally, we talked about some of the feedback you've had more generally, and this very specific one from Donna, which was very funny. So, any final thoughts you might have between yourselves around what ITXM's done for you? You know, any advice you'd give anyone else to get started, or what have you want to talk about?
I think for me, you know, I remember when we initially started, it was very quick to implement when we went, you know, brought on happy signals, but we were really, oh, shouldn't we? And one of your colleagues, Ilka, said, you know, be brave, just do it. And I think that's what I would say to anyone starting off. Just start the process. You know, you can tweak it as you go along. The data starts. You'll be amazed that the data starts flooding in, and you'll probably find out that, you know, people really like what you're doing, actually. And, you know, that seemed to be, you know, it was such, not, I don't say black hole, but it was just a bit of a void or a vacuum before, like, you know, you only got to hear the bad stories, right? Whereas this is like a good news story. Like, the data starts coming in and you're starting to see that, you know, the just how well the teams are doing, and then you can share that with them. And I guess, like, thinking forward looking, we are really excited for some of the new sort of surveys that we can implement, and just to start to bring extra data into, gain extra insights that different teams are asking about, and, you know, just continuing to evolve the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe I'll just add, like, Sharon's obviously been in this. She's been in this a lot longer than I have, and she's really led the charge in terms of, like, building out our ITXM and what we do today. And I would say that it wasn't really until Sharon came. She developed all of this outside of my team, and then joined my team a lot later. So I kind of inherited this whole piece and I didn't have a learning curve. I had a straight line, but it was. But what I loved about it is from a customer experience point of view, and that's really where my skill set is, customer experience. And I've kind of nerded out on this stuff, and it suits my customer experience vibe. And I just sit there and I'll just dig into these things. I just love having these conversations, and just sort of like learning about what other people are doing as well. So, I mean, you know, you use a wider community, find out what the people around you and other businesses are using as well, and sort of like just really, really collaborate on what's working, what's not for you. For me, that's been super exciting. I've learned so much from Sharon, from you, Mark, from the rest of the team, and from a lot of your customers, actually.
Wow.
So I've just really enjoyed that experience. So I'd say the same. I was like, don't be afraid. Just have a look at it, dig in, nerd out.
It's
Yeah.
almost like, it's like the fun part, isn't it? It'd be the job being able to do this, to, you know, to get to interact with people, see what they like, what they don't like. And also when you get, you know, when you gain insight that you didn't know at all before, and it's like totally new news to the rest of the tech community, like, oh, people don't like the weight of the laptops. Or, you know, just those that would never have, probably would never have come to the forefront, because the laptop decisions is made by men who drive cars in the US in our company.
And in
Whereas,
tech.
yeah, and in tech,
Okay.
we weren't
Hey,
considering people that commute or females or anything else. So it's just these extra insights. They're almost like a secondary gain. So you get to see, like, we resolved this, we did this, but these extra secondary gains that you get from having implemented this framework into our environment.
No, that's wonderful. And that all of that resonates with me, because I remember back in my days in 2018, we just put this in, and it is more difficult in some environments where you've got so many hoops to go through, right, and so many hurdles to go over. Of course, you have to go through security and that type of stuff. That always happens, but it's just getting on with it, isn't it? You know, it's do you run a really long pilot for a year, or do you just crack on, right? Just do something. I'm one for doing something,
Yeah.
you know, and I think in the end you move with what's happening, right? You change your decisions on based on what's happening in front of you. Much better than waiting for perfection, if you ask me, you know. But it does change your way of working, and I think it's changed your two's ways of working immensely. It certainly changed mine, and it changed my whole shift from ITSM. Yes, it's still there, you have to have it, because a lot of what we talk about in ITXM relates back to ITSM stuff, processes, but I much prefer the ITXM part than the ITSM stuff, if that makes sense, the human part. So, and I think of you two and the conversations we've had in the past, it's the same thing for you two too. Excellent.
And I
Thank you
think
very
as well,
much.
Mark, we found out that we can do we can do a quick experiment And if it doesn't work as we thought, we can pivot and just change that. Okay, you know, a tweak here, like frequency of surveys, or change some wording. It's all really easy to do. And, you know, not to be scared if it's not super perfect to begin with. We have that ability to change it, and quite quickly, really. So that's really helpful also.
Well, thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you very much, Donna. I've really enjoyed this one, and thank you so much and have a great day.
If you liked this episode, please give us thumbs up, rating, or share it with your colleagues to help others learn about this topic as well. To learn more, go to happysignals.com.